The Rangers, they're coming off one of their most embarrassing losses of the season, a 10-2 beatdown at the hands of the Boston Bruins on Saturday, with offensive struggles continuing, Igor Shesterkin on the sidelines, and the trade deadline a few months away. Serious questions are emerging about where this team is headed and what changes may be necessary. So, to help us break it all down, we're joined by Andrew Celney, co-host of the Liberty Blue podcast. He joins me now for the first time here on New York Post Sports. Andrew, what's going on, man? How you doing?
What's up, Dak? Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you, Andrew. Always a pleasure to have you on and talk with you about hockey. We've done it in other places, but we finally get to do it here. And Andrew, let's get right to it, okay? When you strip away the shock value of that 10-2 loss, beatdown, whatever you want to call it, what does this game against Boston actually reveal about where the Rangers are right now as a team?
It just highlights where they are, and they're just not good enough. And the faster the Rangers organization can come to terms with that, the better it will be for now and for the future. The Rangers are not good enough. The reports are that the Rangers are apparently buyers, and I know we'll talk about that in a minute. But no, this team needs to sell. Panarin is on an expiring contract, and from my understanding, contract extension conversations have gone nowhere. So the Rangers have to sell him while they still can. The Rangers core that's been here the past few seasons of Zibanejad and and Trocheck and Lafreniere, they have proven that they are not good enough. And JT Miller is here through 2030 with a no move clause. Zibanejad's here through 2030 with a no move clause. And when you give everybody no move clauses, you're stuck. And that's a massive problem. You have to convince at least some of these guys to move off of it, because right now this team is going nowhere. And that loss really highlighted to everybody, if you weren't already aware that this team was not good enough, and over half the season's done, and the Rangers are mid. They are what they are. And if by this point you still were not on board with that beatdown that Boston gave them had to have opened your eyes, because if that didn't, then at this point nothing will.
Well, some people, you know this, Andrew, some people are still going to have hope. They're going to hope that they can turn it around. They're going to still say there's time to turn it around as they get towards the trade deadline. As I said, we're just like under 2 months away from that. But here's another thing, and this goes to what you were talking about. The Rangers, they continue to struggle generating consistent offense at 5-on-5. From your vantage point, is this more about personnel, system, or confidence? What's the reason for the Rangers' offensive issues this season?
It's a mixture of a lot of things. I would say personnel is definitely one of them. When you have a guy like Connor Sherry playing in your top six, who came in on a PTO, and by all accounts is doing a lot of little things right, it's not so much of a him specifically issue, but he's got one goal, and we're through more than half the season. When somebody like that is playing in your top six, yeah, you're going... not being able to generate enough offense is going to be the name of the game. He's had chances, but he's not that kind of player to be playing in your top six. So he's got one goal. Lafreniere has been very hot and cold. He had a good moment in a Winter Classic against Florida. He had a couple of points, but now he's back to being somebody that kind of disappears for long stretches. Same thing with Zibanejad. He's been probably the Rangers' best forward, which is like last season, he was pretty much nowhere to be found. This season, he's been a lot better, but even then, it just hasn't been good enough. The Rangers don't have enough offensive depth to make up for the fact that they're just not scoring. Defensively, they've been pretty solid. Obviously, the 10 goals against Boston isn't going to paint the prettiest of pictures about regarding that, but overall their defense has been very good. They're losing a lot of games because they can't score. They truly cannot put the puck in the net, and some of that maybe can be tied down to Mike Sullivan, because his system is more of we're going to play the best defense we can, and that might limit aggressive chances of trying to generate offense. But at a certain point, also, if you're forcing too much offense, then you give up defensively, and that's what leads to bad turnovers and bad goals against. The personnel overall is the biggest problem. Yeah, confidence. I mean, especially when you lose 10-2, your confidence is not going to be great. So when you're in the midst of a season that has you winning one, losing one, winning two, losing two. You're just not getting out of that rut. And playoff projections right now have you in the 5% chance of making the playoffs. Yeah, your confidence on the team it's not going to be very high. So that is also going to impact the way that you play, right? If you are gripping your stick a little bit too tightly, then the puck isn't going to come off your stick as cleanly. The passes aren't going to be as crisp. You're forcing things. But overall, the personnel just is not good enough. And again, Chris Drury just has to reconcile with that.
Yeah, sometimes it's not that deep, right, Andrew? Sometimes the personnel just isn't good enough at all. Now, here's another thing. Lost some guys, and Igor Shesterkin, he's sidelined now. So with him being sidelined, the margin for error feels very razor thin for this team. You talked about how good they've been defensively, but they can't score. How much has this team been exposed without the elite goaltending of Shesterkin, and is that masking some of the issues that we see with the Rangers right now?
Think of it this way. The Rangers weren't winning games with him. So if if the Rangers were, at least they were winning games on the road. At home, they continue to not really compete for. I mean, it's very strange. They are a very, very Jekyll and Hyde kind of team. On the road, they continue to play their best hockey, which, again, you watch that Boston game and you go, this is the team that's won 15 on the road, and they lead the league in road wins, and they lost 10-2 in Boston. And then on home ice, they just can't generate anything to save their lives. I mean, it's baffling to me, to say the least. But they were a mid-team when Shesterkin was here, when Adam Fox was playing. You have one of the best goalies on the planet and one of the best defensemen on the planet, who, by the way, didn't make Team USA, which is a baffling decision, to say the least. But that's neither here nor there. You had two of the best players on the planet playing for your team, and you still couldn't generate offense. You still couldn't win games. So with them out, it only exacerbates the problem. They already had a bunch of issues prior to, and now you take away their two best players, and now all of a sudden, wait, the problems that they already had got exponentially worse. Whom could have seen this coming? Like, this is a problem that, you take away two best players from any team, and the team is going to play, worse because, your best talent's not there. But the Rangers had a lot of problems that, Fox and Shesterkin were trying to mask as best that they could, and they still were not much of anything to write home about. And now you take those two away, and now you really have problems.
Yeah, feels like they're really, really exposed right now. Just everything looks worse, and I guess that's how you get to a 10-2 beatdown, right? Now, I know you want to talk about this. Let's talk about the trade deadline as we approach that, right? What should Chris Drury's primary objective be here? And do you believe this is still a team that should be buying at the deadline? Or is this the moment to seriously consider selling pieces and recalibrating the entire roster? What should the Rangers do at this trade deadline? Either you're going to do two things here, Andrew. Either you're going to give the people some hope, or you're going to tell them, nope, the hope ship has sailed away. What are you doing here?
It's, I don't enjoy being negative. I would so much rather, wave the pom-poms and talk about, okay, there's at least some light here. There's some future. There's some, prospects that could take this team. Like, if there was a hidden prospect that the Rangers could call up, and then he would just slot in the top six and score 40 goals and everything would be hunky-dory. The Rangers don't have anybody like that. And so you have to be realistic. And as much as I would like to be like, the Rangers still have a chance, they're still close to that playoff line, if they just rattle off a few in a row, they could get that done, you have to be realistic when assessing this team. They have not been able to score all season. Their system, they're a fragile team as well. They've taken whole periods off for reasons unbeknownst to mankind. Like, it's very weird to watch how they'll come out of games and play entire periods where they have 3 shot attempts in 20 minutes. What playoff team plays that way? If you have one game like that or 2 games like that, it's one thing. The Rangers do this on a consistent basis, where they don't generate enough offense, they don't crash the net enough, they do a lot of forced passes, they try to get the puck through 9 people and then, look around when that doesn't work. There's not one player on this team that says, you know what? I can do it myself. Let me drive to the net. Let me generate it. Let me generate a scoring opportunity, and let me get this done. Even somebody like JT Miller, who has had a couple of those chances that which led to overtime winners, he's done that in overtime pretty much exclusively because he's been battling injuries this entire season. He hasn't been able to drive the net maybe as much as he would have liked to, because he's playing through a bunch of things that is limiting his ability to perform well. So he's driving when there's more open space that's created, which gives him the opportunity to kind of use that space to his advantage to drive in there. But overall, this team is okay. Let's say they win their next few, and and they, after game 82, they barely squeak into the playoffs. What you're telling me is if it's a problem scoring goals for you in early January against a Boston Bruins team that also is not in a playoff spot. They don't have, besides Pasternak, of course, and Charlie McAvoy, this is a team that's flawed. You can beat this team, and you barely generate 2 goals. You barely generate shot attempts against the Islanders or, whoever, the Montreal Canadiens. Like, these are teams that give you opportunities to create offense against them, and the Rangers just don't do that. So if you have trouble doing that in December, in January, is it going to get easier come playoff time, or is it going to get harder? The answer, of course, is that it's going to be exponentially harder to generate offense in the playoffs, especially because teams will scout you either way, but in a 7-game series, the other team knows everything about you. If you can't score against a team that maybe scouted you for like a couple hours prior to your game, what chances do you have beating a team 4 out of 7 times, a much better team, by the way, 4 out of 7 times in a series where they will watch only your tape for hours on end and figure out a way to beat you down? You have to think of this realistically. There is no feasible way, as currently constructed, the Rangers can do really any sort of damage come playoff time. So the conclusion that you have to reach logically is, okay, if you don't have a shot of beating somebody in a playoff series, you have to sell as much as you can to recuperate your assets. Because again, the Rangers don't have a whole lot in the cupboard, and they need to restock that if they want any shot of getting their prospects back, getting more draft picks. They don't really have much of that to speak of, and if they want anything like that, they got to sell.
Sell, sell, sell. That is the message there from Andrew Celney. Andrew, one last thing for me, because you talked about expectations. And I said it before, some people are still going to have hope, right? And they're going to hope that the Rangers can course correct. But let's say big picture, if they don't course correct soon, what does success realistically look like for the remainder of the season? And how should fans recalibrate their expectations? Is it a situation of, hey, they can get some assets, they sell at the deadline? Should that then be the expectation? Should it be, hey, maybe you see some other young players start playing well towards the end of the seasons? How do you think fans should recalibrate expectations for the rest of the season if this team does not course correct soon?
A lot of it depends on what they get at the deadline. If you sell Panarin and get a top-end prospect, or even, somebody that could come in and play in the NHL right away, then at that point, the expectation would be, okay, let's see what this player has. Gabriel Perreault has played a little bit top 6, a little bit top 9. He's been pretty okay at holding his own for the most part as he's been up here. Let's put him in the top 6 and just staple him there, and let's have him make mistakes, because that's the thing. At the NHL level, with a lot of these super young guys, you take a look at Macklin Celebrini and Jack Hughes, who had the opportunities very early on in their careers to make a lot of mistakes playing up at the NHL level in the top 6 when expectations were low. Alexei Lafreniere is an example of a guy that was drafted first overall by the Rangers, and then suddenly he was almost instantly thrust into a position where they have to win now. And so early on in his career, he was put behind guys like Colin Blackwell, who is a third, fourth liner at best, and a guy that if you are not an insane person like I am about hockey, you have no idea who Colin Blackwell even is. A first overall pick should not be playing behind somebody like that, but that's what the Rangers did because they were, quote unquote, trying to win as much as they could. So at that point, if the Rangers are, have understood that they are not going to win the cup, that they are not going to be competitive come the playoffs, and they sell as much as they can and they recuperate their assets, now the goal becomes, okay, let's give the young players, whether that be the guys that are here, like Gabriel Perreault, Brett Berard, maybe, Othman, or even Adam Sikora, who's right now in Hartford in the AHL, bring them up, just see what they can do for you. And then if they acquire, some other young names in these sell-offs that they're doing, just put as many young guys in the rotation as much as you can and give them ice time and let them make mistakes, because that is how you learn. Early on, like I said, with Jack Hughes, celebrating all these guys, they were given the leash to be like, okay, you're going to make mistakes out here, but that's okay. That's how you figure things out faster than if you were playing 11 minutes a night. The goal would then become, okay, this season is not going anywhere. Let's recalibrate here. Let's give all the young guys as much leeway as we can give them to figure things out, and the next season we'll shift course and we'll see where we are once the season's over. That's where the Rangers have to be, because right now they're all in on winning now, and allegedly they're going to try to trade for Kiefer Sherwood from the Canucks, which doesn't make any sense. He's a rental and he's going to demand a lot of money. So you're going to trade the very limited assets that you have to get a guy that really doesn't change the direction of your roster for what? Right now, the course would be to sell, and once they do that, then the expectation is just have the young guys play, have them figure it out, and then next season comes along, we go from there.
Well, here's the thing, Andrew. They have to get to that point where they have to decide to sell, right? And that'll maybe shift some of the fan expectations. We will see how that goes, but not a good weekend for the Rangers. They were beat down in Boston by the Bruins 10-2. Pretty ugly, and Andrew saying time for things to change on the ice there for the team that plays at the Garden. That is Andrew Celney. Check him out. Liberty Blue Podcast does a great job covering the New York Rangers. Andrew, you said that you're insane about hockey. I hope things get better for you covering the Rangers, and maybe they play better, or they have a direction that you can see. I know you'd like to see that, but I appreciate you coming on to talk some Rangers hockey with me, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thanks for having me, Dex.